Hey, I'm Bob Marley, and let me share a bit of my story with you. Picture this. Growing up on top of a sewer, dealing with shady producers, and then spreading some love through my music, man. It's been quite a journey. So, it all started back on February 6, 1945. My folks were quite the odd pair back then. My mom, Cedella Booker, was a young Jamaican lady of 18, and my dad, Norval Marley, well, he was a 60-year-old British chap working on a plantation in Jamaica. Yeah, I know. Quite the age gap, right? They split up not long after I came into this world, and my old man passed away when I was just a kid of 10. Didn't really have much of a relationship with him anyway. When I did talk about him, it wasn't with much fondness. Norval, my old man, served in World War I, but not in any front-line action. Nope. Turns out he was mostly dealing with his own battles of incontinence. Poor guy spent the war doing support work in the UK after some medical stuff. And my mom, she'd spin tales about him being a captain and whatnot. But my girlfriend back in the 70s, Esther Anderson, she spilled the beans to the BBC. Most of it was just fluff, you know? My dad was pretty much a ghost in my life. Had one photo of him, a white guy on a horse. That's about it. I grew up in 9 Miles, a little mountain village in Jamaica. Yeah, it was a peaceful spot. But as a young man, I packed my bags and headed to Kingston. Now, if you know my music, you've probably heard me talk about Trenchtown, the place where I came of age. But let me tell you something about its name that might shock you. See, Trenchtown wasn't exactly built on roses and sunshine. Nah, it got its name because it was literally constructed on top of a sewage trench. Yeah, not the most glamorous upbringing, but it's where I honed my skills. You see, Trenchtown wasn't exactly a walk in the park. It was home to some tough characters, what they called rude boys. Now, I wasn't one to back down from a scrap, so I'd find myself in the mix with them from time to time. Ended up earning myself a nickname that stuck with me for life. Tough Gong. Yeah, you heard that right. It's the same name I gave to my record label later on. That label, man, it became a powerhouse for spreading reggae music worldwide. And hey, you know that song of mine, No Woman, No Cry? Well, there's a bit of my Trenchtown days in there. I sang about sitting in the government yard in Trenchtown, watching all sorts of folks pass by. It was a slice of life from back then, you know. So there you have it, a little taste of my journey from 9 Miles to Trenchtown. Life's funny that way, ain't it? Sharing a bit about my early days in Kingston. So, like many kids around there, I was drawn to the music scene. Back in the 60s, me and my buddy Neville Livingston were tinkering with songwriting. But you know, my mom, Cedella, she had other ideas. She wanted me to have a backup plan, something steady in case music didn't pan out. I remember the day I told her I was done with school at just 14. I handed her my books and said, "No more school for me, Mom. I know someone who could use these." So, she got me an apprenticeship as a welder. Wasn't exactly my dream gig, but hey, it was something. That is, until a piece of hot metal decided to take a detour into my eye one day. Ouch, let me tell you, that was the end of my welding days. After that, I knew music was where I belonged. And you know what? That welding job brought me more than just pain. Met this guy, Peter Tosh, fellow welder with big musical dreams. Along with Neville, who later became Bunny Wailer, we formed our own little group. But we needed some guidance before we were ready to take on the world. Let me tell you about Joe Higgs, a real legend in those days. He was part of a duo with Delroy Wilson, and man, he had this raw, gutsy singing style that stood out. But what made Joe special was how he took us under his wing. Me, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer. You see, Joe wasn't just about his own career. Nah, he saw something in us and decided to make us his project. And let me tell you, he taught us everything, from how to control our breath when singing to crafting melodies on the guitar and writing lyrics that meant something. Joe was all about protest songs, standing up for what's right. Even when me and the Wailers started making waves, Joe stayed humble, staying mostly in the background. Though he did join us on a US tour and even co-wrote Stepping Razor, a hit for Peter Tosh. Joe passed away in '99, but his legacy lives on. He's remembered as one of the greats alongside me in Jamaica's music history. So there's this businessman, Leslie Kong, who owned Beverly's, a restaurant and record store. Now, he didn't plan on becoming a record producer, but fate had other ideas. One day, this young fella named Jimmy Cliff walks into Kong's store, dreaming of making it big in music. Kong saw potential and decided to team up with Cliff. Jimmy's career took off with hits like Hurricane Hattie and Miss Jamaica. And you know what? Cliff introduced me to Kong, and that's how I made my first recordings. Now, here's the kicker. Kong. Well, he wasn't the most generous guy. He paid me a measly $20 for my recordings. But hey, that was how things went down back then in Jamaica. Despite his shady ways, we recorded a few more tunes for him. But then, in 1970, Kong made a move that some say cost him dearly. Without asking us, he decided to release a compilation called Best of the Wailers. Bunny Wailer, he wasn't too pleased about it. Legend has it, he even placed a curse on Kong. Sure enough, just a year after that album dropped, Kong passed away from a heart attack at only 37. Life's strange, isn't it? So, after parting ways with Leslie Kong, the Wailers landed another big shot producer, Clement Sir Coxsone Dodd. Now this guy was the real deal, the owner of Studio One, where all the reggae legends got their start. I'm talking about legends like me, man, and genres like ska, rocksteady, and dancehall. They all took shape at his mixing board. With Sir Coxsone's help, we became a tight-knit group, pumping out hit after hit. Some of them even hit #1 in Jamaica. Our first big success was a song called Simmer Down. Now, the title says it all. It was a message to the tough guys in the Kingston slums, telling them to chill out and settle their differences peacefully. I sang, "Oh, control your temper, or the battle will be hotter, and you won't get no supper, and you know you're bound to suffer." But you know what's funny? Simmer Down wasn't just a message to the rude boys out there. It was also my way of telling my dear old mom, Sedella, not to worry about me getting mixed up with those rough characters in Trenchtown. See, I wanted to show her that I was my own man, marching to my own beat. After my old man passed away, my mom, Sedella, remarried and moved to Delaware. This was around 1966, the same year I tied the knot with Rita, my one and only love. Now there's a bit of fuzziness around the exact timing, but yeah, we eventually joined Sedella over in Delaware. You know, life in Delaware was quite different from back home in Jamaica. Not many folks there knew about my music, including our neighbors, Ibis and Jenny Pitts. Funny thing is, Ibis was a drummer, and we used to jam together. He got hooked on the Wailers tunes after Rita gave him one of our 7-inch records. When my visa ran out, Ibis even tagged along with me back to Jamaica. He was blown away by the crowds, the fans, the footballers, all following me around like I was some kind of prophet. Man, he said it was like Jesus with his disciples. Can you believe that? Years after I left this world, the Pitts family organized a music festival in my honor, the People's Festival for Peace, right there in Wilmington, Delaware. And you know what? It's still going strong to this day, keeping my spirit alive through music and unity. Picture this. I'm living over in Delaware when something huge happens back home in Jamaica. It's April 21st, 1966, Groundation Day, a significant day for Rastafarians like myself. This is when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, makes his first visit to Jamaica, stirring up a whole lot of excitement among the people. Now, let me break it down for you. Rastafarianism, it's more than just a religion, man. It's a belief system that draws from different sources, but at its core, it's about us Africans finding our way back to our homeland, Africa, which we call Zion. It's seen as a holy land, and Selassie, he's believed to be the second coming of Christ. When Selassie visited Jamaica, it got me thinking, digging deeper into my spirituality. And you know what? I found my path with Rastafarianism, embracing it fully, even growing out my trademark dreadlocks. These locks, they're more than just a hairstyle. They're my identity, man, a symbol of my faith. By then, I was already in my 20s, but this conversion, it changed everything for me. When I returned to Jamaica to reunite the Wailers in the late 60s, we had a new purpose, a new direction. But let me tell you, there were still some tough times ahead for us. Let me tell you about Lee "Scratch" Perry, a legend in the music scene. This guy played a big role in shaping the sound of me and the Wailers. He produced our album Soul Rebels, which was our first big release outside Jamaica. And you know what? He hooked us up with some top-notch musicians like drummer Carlton Barrett and his brother, bassist Aston Family Man Barrett. These guys, they set the bar high for reggae music. Now, working with Perry definitely got us more attention, but it didn't exactly fill our pockets. According to Bunny Wailer, Perry was more interested in his own gain than ours. In a Rolling Stone interview, Bunny didn't mince words, saying, "Perry didn't do squat for us, and we never saw a cent from those albums." Perry had a different take on things, claiming Bunny was just holding a grudge for who knows what we sown. But you know us, we made our feelings clear, even in our music. Take Trenchtown Rock, for example. In that song we sang, "You reap what you sow, and everyone know now, don't turn your back." Yeah, we weren't shy about calling out Perry, a moment that could have been a big break for me. So picture this. I'm jamming on my guitar at a party in Kingston when these two Americans, manager Danny Sims and soul singer Johnny Nash, they spot me. They're looking to add some island vibes to Nash's tunes, and they figure I'm their guy. They propose a deal. Me and the Wailers would head to London to help Nash write some songs. And in return, we'd open for him at some shows and maybe even get a record deal with CBS Records. Now, it all sounded promising, but it turned out better for Nash than it did for us. He recorded a few of my tunes, including Stir It Up, and even scored a big hit with I Can See Clearly Now. But I soon realized Nash didn't really get what reggae was all about. In his book, Before the Legend, The Rise of Bob Marley, I put it plain and simple. He's a nice guy, but he doesn't know what reggae is. Johnny Nash is not Rasta. And if you're not a Rasta, you don't know nothing about reggae. Oh. To top it off, CBS Records had us record this borderline novelty song, Reggae on Broadway, and then did squat to promote it. That was the final straw. We ended the partnership knowing we needed to stay true to ourselves and our music. The turning point in my journey to stardom. So, after things went haywire for us in London, me and the Wailers needed a way back home to Jamaica. But fate had other plans. We ended up at the doorstep of Chris Blackwell, the man behind Island Records. Now, we didn't stroll in there feeling defeated. Nah, we walked in with power and confidence, knowing what we were capable of. You see, we had a little dispute about money owed from our records being distributed in the UK. Turns out, our timing was perfect. Jimmy Cliff had just left Iceland Records, and Blackwell saw potential in us. He wanted to make us big with the college crowd. So, he agreed to front £4,000 to make an album, no strings attached. A couple of months later, he came down to Jamaica to check out what we'd cooked up. And man, he was blown away by the raw tracks we laid down, tracks that would become our breakthrough album, Catch a Fire, a time when Jamaica was torn apart by politics. Back in the 70s, things were heated between the Liberal People's National Party, PNP, and the conservative Jamaica Labour Party, JLP. It was like a powder keg waiting to explode, with violence erupting all too often. I wanted to do something to bring my people together, so I agreed to play a free concert called Smile Jamaica on December 5th, 1976. But just 2 days before the show, our rehearsal was interrupted by gunfire. Bullets ripped through my home, hitting me in the arm, grazing Rita's head, and nearly killing our manager, Don Taylor. Despite the attack, I refused to back down. I took to the stage at Smile, Jamaica, the bullet still lodged in my arm. If anything, the shooting fueled my determination to spread unity and peace. 2 years later, I organized the One Love Peace concert. I brought both the PNP Prime Minister and the JLP leader on stage, making them shake hands in front of the whole nation. For me, it was all about purpose and responsibility. I knew I had a duty to use my voice for good, and that's exactly what I did. And you know what? The United Nations recognized my efforts by awarding me the Medal of Peace. It was a humbling moment, but it showed me that even in the darkest times, love and unity can shine through. I will tell you about a tough decision I had to make. You see, my love for people and my desire to make this world better fit perfectly with the Rastafarian beliefs. But there's one part of it that led me down a tricky path. Back in the late 70s, when I noticed something wasn't right with my toenail, I thought it was just a sports injury. I mean, I loved playing football, so it seemed like nothing out of the ordinary. But turns out it was melanoma, a type of cancer. The doctor suggested amputating my toe, but that went against my religious beliefs. So I opted for a skin graft instead. But man, that wasn't enough. By the time we realized how serious it was, the cancer had spread everywhere. I tried alternative treatments, changing up my diet and all, but nothing worked. I was heading back home to Jamaica when things took a turn for the worse. I ended up in a hospital in Miami where, well, you know the rest. Anyway, folks, that's my story. Remember, love conquers all, even if it can't beat cancer. Keep spreading love and peace, and I'll catch you on the other side. One love.